Hello, all. My name is Dr. Bruce Crawford. I am a board-certified urogynecologist with over 27 years of clinical experience. Now, mostly on this channel, we discuss pelvic floor disorders. In fact, being overweight greatly increases the risk of urinary incontinence, and so I feel a discussion of menopause and weight gain is right in line with our purpose. If you appreciate all the work that goes into bringing you these videos, please click the like button and subscribe to the channel because that will help us reach more people. Today, we are going to be talking about something that has been the source of concern, frustration, and even anger to millions of women, something that seems to invite speculation or even magical thinking by many. The issue of unwanted weight gain is relevant to more of us than ever before, and despite continuous effort to do the right thing, to make lifestyle changes to arrest and reverse weight gain, we usually fail. Why is that? Well, that's the topic of today's video, and we are going to be focusing on weight gain in menopause, as this is a time when many women become acutely aware that the rules of the game have changed. Understanding how your body is changing and what you can do to anticipate, adjust, and live compatibly with these changes is the goal of today's video. So let's start by defining a few terms. Menopause is a word we are familiar with, but few really understand the implied changes to physiology. Menopause is a period of time in a woman's life, not a single event that takes place. It is not like puberty, that is a time demarcated event. It sounds like an event because of the way we use the term. We often hear, I went through menopause at age 50 or something like that, but it is a misleading use of language. It's not like driving through Iowa or In-N-Out Burger. Perhaps we should say, I entered menopause or arrived, because nobody's going to exit menopause. Transitioning into menopause sure feels like you're going through something. Now, I understand only insofar as I've been taking care of women in their 40s and 50s for the last 3 decades as a board-certified gynecologist, urogynecologist. So there's no need to point out in the comments that I can't possibly understand from an experiential standpoint. I get it, and I agree. I hope that you'll let me attempt to present the scientific facts and therapeutic realities objectively. Right, so menopause is not a medical disorder. It's not a disease. It is a physiologic inevitability that every woman will experience if she lives long enough. The most basic change that is occurring is the depletion of viable ovarian follicles, or eggs. As a 20-week-old fetus, you have about 6 to 7 million eggs in your ovaries, but by the time you're born, you have about 1 to 2 million left. At puberty, you have 300 to 500,000 eggs, and from this point on, 20 or so begin to mature each month, and 1, sometimes 2, are ultimately released each month in an event called ovulation. Over the course of your life, you will ovulate about 500 times. Perhaps we can think of this process as the way your body selects only the best, most fit eggs to win the great privilege of possibly becoming a new person. The odds at 20 weeks gestation of any one egg being released is something like 0.007%. Incredible. By the time a woman is around 51, there are only about 1,000 eggs left, and these remaining eggs are unlikely to mature to a degree where ovulation can take place. As a consequence of ovulation stopping, women stop menstruating. They stop getting their period. After 12 months of not having a period, doctors will say you are in menopause. It's useful to understand that your estrogen levels are directly related to egg development and ovulation. In fact, estrogen levels begin to drop after age 30. And you can see this graphically in this slide. So notice that estrogen begins to drop at around age 30. Testosterone begins to drop a little earlier and does so more slowly and over a longer period of time. This implies that the ratio of estrogen to testosterone begins to drop at around age 30, and this has some significant consequences in terms of fat distribution, specifically accumulation of fat in the abdominal region. Many of my patients in their 30s and 40s complain, I used to have a nice flat stomach. Well, what happened? Well, these hormone changes may have something to do with it. The experience of estrogen levels dropping below a certain threshold, which is different for each woman, are pretty well described. They include hot flashes and night sweats, concentration problems, sleep problems, weight gain, bone demineralization. Loss of libido can be due to a lot of different things, but waning testosterone levels likely play some role. Today we're going to talk about weight gain and what can be done to avoid and reverse it. Why do women gain weight after menopause? Well, there are a lot of reasons. We will be discussing all of them and how important it is to adapt to these changes. Aging after 30 is a degenerative process. I'm sorry for the bad news. But the best way to deal with any bad news is to accept it as quickly as possible and adjust to put yourself in the best position for health and happiness in the future. The consequence of aging is inevitable, but the timeline is not. Our strategy is to push away these consequences as much as possible. The aging brain is unfortunately prone to anxiety and depression. These conditions will affect your behavior, which otherwise can be used to avoid anxiety and depression. Exercise, social engagement, problem solving, and service to others are the things that ward off the evil spirits of anxiety and depression. So you can see how this is a cycle that must turn in the right direction. If you are already behind the 8 ball, you may have to force yourself to do things you don't want to do right now, but only for the amount of time it takes for you to want to do them. Don't confuse your opinions as facts. They are not, and they can change. Consider these two ways of seeing the world. On the left, we have a list of things we tend to run away from, and on the right, we have a list of things we run toward. It may make sense to you that we are more quickly exhausted running away from things we don't want rather than running towards the things we want more of. Have you ever thought about why this might be? It is at the heart of why people don't maintain their New Year's resolutions or stick to a diet or fitness plan. I believe the reason we fail when focusing on the things we don't want is because it is nigh impossible to create less of something. The only way to create is to create more of something. Think about it. It's impossible to make less of something. You can only make more of something. Have you ever said to yourself, I've been working for the last month on creating and now I have less? I don't think so. You can only increase things. It is just that sometimes we increase the things we don't want by holding those things as a motivating force. Sure, fear can make us do what we don't want to do for a while, but love and happiness can make us do things indefinitely because we want to do it. So whatever you focus on is going to increase. Focus on increasing the things you want by witnessing the amount of that thing you already have. The body I want is already here. It's just underneath 30 or 40 pounds of extra weight. I love that body and will see more of it by doing certain things today. I call the negative thinking of I want less as shit radio that plays in our head out of habit. When it plays, just change the station. Someone once said that complaining is only a prayer for something that you don't want. So let's stop doing that by making little corrections when it plays, and over time it will play less and less. Think of it as consumption versus production. One way of defining a successful life is a person that produces more than they consume. In doing so, they make the world better. On a physical level, if we consume more energy than we produce, expend, we get fat. You see, we are by nature giving machines, not taking machines. When we live like giving machines, we thrive. But when we live like taking machines, we are forever confounded by the failure and frustration that comes from a fundamental misunderstanding of who we are. If you're a tree, but believe you're a horse, you can make the very best horse decisions ever made, and still those decisions don't produce the results you want. It is not that you're unlucky or that life is unfair. The problem is you're a tree. So make tree decisions and watch things turn around. Habits of thought can be changed with intention and practice. You are a giving machine. Remember and remind yourself often. Make more of what you want by practicing this thinking until you have that new thought habit. In general, things don't improve with age. You may have noticed this. A good sense of humor, though, can go a long way towards improving and maintaining the relentless optimism associated with a happy life. I strongly recommend listening to more comedy. You're going to need it. All of the consequences of aging contribute to deconditioning and weight gain. So, the aging process is programmed and unavoidable, but we can influence the time course by making a lot of small decisions on a regular basis. Neurologic aging affects our thinking, memory, muscle mass, and organ function. We can slow down neurologic aging. For example, people who report light to no exercise experience a decline equal to 10 or more years of neurologic aging as compared to people who report regular, moderate to intense exercise. Avoiding alcohol consumption, getting 8 hours of quality sleep, reading and problem solving, think crossword puzzles and the like. And these things all slow down this process of neurologic aging. Vascular aging obviously affects our cardiovascular health, our risk of heart attack and stroke, but also the oxygen supply to our muscles, brain, and organs. We can slow down vascular aging, like atherosclerosis, through aerobic exercise, blood pressure control, improving insulin resistance through diet and exercise. Muscular aging involves not only the shrinking of muscle cells, but the reduction in the number of muscle cells we have to work with. We can slow muscular atrophy with weight training, adequate protein intake, stress reduction, think lowering your cortisol levels, and good sleep hygiene. You see, unwanted weight gain is not a disease. Excess calories in versus calories out is the final consequence of how we think and how we feel. To a degree, it is a symptom of a whole bunch of physical changes that are progressive in all of us. So clearly, part of the plan has to be to do what we can to diminish the effects of these age-related changes. You may have noticed that the one thing that shows up on all the lists of things to do to retard aging is exercise. Our metabolism is our ability to convert fuel, food, into a usable form of energy called ATP, and stored forms of energy like fat and glycogen. The more energy turned into ATP, the less there is to convert into fat. In fact, if we are in a calorie deficit long enough, fat will be utilized to produce more ATP. Good news, right? The main place where fats and proteins and carbohydrates are converted into ATP is the mitochondria. The mitochondria are little structures that exist in every cell except red blood cells. This is where the cell gets the energy it needs to do all the things it needs to do. The amount of fuel burned by the body, that is to say metabolized, is almost completely determined by the number and efficiency of your mitochondria. In fact, 95% of our body's energy expenditure occurs in the mitochondria. Unfortunately, as we age, the number of mitochondria and the efficiency of our mitochondria decreases. As you might imagine, if you're metabolizing less fuel, you're inevitably going to store the excess fuel as fat. And so, you might ask, well, exactly how much does our mitochondrial function decline with age? Well, unfortunately, a lot. One Harvard study reports that somewhere between age 46 and 63, resting energy expenditure begins to decline. After age 63, energy expenditure declines by 0.7% per year. Think of yourself as a furnace, and mitochondrial activity is the size of the flame inside of you. If the flame gets smaller and the same amount of wood gets delivered every day, then pretty soon you can get a lot of excess fuel stacking up around the furnace. How do we protect or even improve mitochondrial efficiency? Well, you guessed it. Exercise. Exercise like high-intensity training and weight training. Some people think certain supplements like omega fatty acids, NAD+, NR, NMN can help improve mitochondrial function as well. So do your own research on these things. Now, insulin resistance is another very common metabolic change associated with aging and menopause. As estrogen levels decline, insulin resistance can increase. Insulin is the hormone that helps cells take in glucose as fuel. If you become relatively resistant to insulin, your blood sugar levels can rise and your pancreas will produce more insulin. Chronically elevated sugar can injure your eyes, kidneys, nerves, and blood vessels. Chronically elevated insulin levels promotes fat accumulation, especially around the abdomen. So it's reasonable to ask your doctor to check your insulin levels or to check your hemoglobin A1C level. If they're elevated, there are things you can do. Yep, again, exercise is the best option. However, there are medications like metformin that can help as well. If you don't have kidney disease presently, diets low in carbohydrates and relatively high in healthy fats and proteins can be of benefit too. Let's talk about appetite. Feelings of fullness while eating tend to decrease during menopause. This likely has something to do with the fact that a hormone called leptin decreases after menopause. Leptin is a hormone produced by fat cells in the body and also by your stomach, and its job is to tell you when to stop eating. Not enough leptin makes us eat more. Hunger, the desire to start eating, is related to a different hormone called ghrelin. Ghrelin levels increase in menopause. Insulin resistance, often due to excess cortisol production, also causes us to eat more. Now, your cortisol levels are related to both physical stress and psychological stress. Learning to manage stress through meditation, fitness training, and laughter can help to lower both cortisol and consequently insulin resistance. This drug, semaglutide, has become highly popular of late in a way that smacks of trouble ahead. The drug is a synthetic version of a naturally occurring hormone called GLP-1. This is released by the small intestine when you consume food. The half-life of native GLP-1 is only 1 to 2 minutes. The half-life of semaglutide is about a week. What could possibly go wrong? The drug works by doing a few different things. The drug increases insulin release from the pancreas, which lowers blood sugar, slows stomach emptying, and binds to GLP receptors in the hypothalamus, and it suppresses appetite. Based on 27 years of medical practice, the broad application of an older drug to a new population, in this case overweight non-diabetics, is very likely to reveal negative consequences. There are loads of examples of drugs gaining FDA approval that are later recognized to have terrible unforeseen consequences. Think thalidomide, DES, Vioxx, original high-dose birth control pills, Seldane, even aspirin given to children with mumps. Do you remember Aspergum? Anyway, I really urge caution when it comes to using these drugs in the absence of adult-onset diabetes, unresponsive to metformin, or weight problems that are causing serious medical problems. Not to mention that the drug costs quite a bit, about $1,000 a month. It just seems exploitive to me, and doctors need to be sensitive to this. So many people are so desperate to lose weight that they're willing to accept real risk of taking a medication like semaglutide, perhaps well convinced that after they lose the weight, they will change their behavior in ways that allow them to stop using the drug. Be careful if this makes sense to you. If you were not able to change fitness and nutrition with the incentive of being overweight, what do you think the odds are you will do so once that incentive is removed? So Ozempic does help people lose weight as long as they continue to use it. This is a real home run for the pharmaceutical industry. Are you planning on taking this drug forever? Is the risk of rebound weight gain greater than not losing the weight in the first place? These are questions you need to carefully consider before starting to take this drug simply for weight loss. And there are real direct risks associated with taking Ozempic. Medullary thyroid carcinoma, kidney injury, even in people with no history of kidney disease. For diabetics with diabetic retinopathy, worsening retinopathy is a risk. Impaired stomach emptying, called gastroparesis, and gallstones are all real risks associated with this drug. Many people are now recommended to try a supplement called berberine for weight loss. This is a plant extract and is not regulated by the FDA. This implies that quality control between manufacturers just doesn't exist. Some have suggested this compound lowers blood sugar levels and may even suppress appetite. There's a great deal of anecdotal evidence that it does help people lose weight. There have been a couple of multi-study reviews that indicate it does help people lose weight, but the amount of weight loss may not impress you. One study, for instance, reported an average of only 5-pound weight loss after taking berberine for 12 weeks. So let's review. Maybe the most important thing you can do is to check your motivation. Move towards health and fitness, embracing the degree to which you already have these things and then adding to it. Avoid negative self-talk. Aging is programmed and unavoidable. It requires us to accept this as fact and make adaptations. Be nice to your mitochondria. They're responsible for 95% of calorie burning. And there are things you can do like aerobic training and weight training that can improve their abundance and efficiency. If you're not getting an hour of exercise several times a week, start by changing that. You can do it. Even enjoy it. Approach the very fashionable weight loss drugs with real caution, especially if you do not presently have diabetes. I hope this has been helpful and interesting. Please comment below what your experience has been if you're struggling with weight gain after menopause. We try to bring you excellent content and will continue to do so. With your feedback, we will be able to better serve you. Bye-bye for now.